Remember, we're sharing out, okay?
Okay, yeah.
All right, you guys. It says we are live. Let me find our live here. Let some people start popping on. You know, it takes a while for it to show up that we're live here. There it goes.
Right.
Yay.
All right, guys, we are officially live. Okay, I can see all of us. Let's get ourselves shared out and set up. I'm going to share out to the Heightened and Enlightened page
There we go.
while we wait for people to pop on. Pop on. Oh, you guys have to mute your other.
It still has an echo? Okay.
Good.
Can you guys still hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. How about you, Ashley?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Okay. Good to go. All right. Once some people get to rolling in.
Yeah, definitely they're going to want to tune in to this one.
Okay, cool. So I got us all shared out. For the people that are just popping on, make sure that you say hello as you come on so we know that you're here. This is episode 2 of Heighten and Enlighten, the live show. You guys make sure that you let us know that you're here.
Hello, everybody, to everyone who's coming in. Hello, hello. And this good Sunday fun day.
It actually turned out to be a pretty nice day. Sun's starting to peak a little bit.
It's
Hey,
great.
there they go.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm
Hello,
starting to see
everybody.
everybody pop on. Let me get us pulled back up here. Oh, I'm still signed into the business page. Let me go back over to my regular page.
Okay,
Okay.
we see everybody
Hi,
popping on. Hey, you
Rachel.
guys.
Hi,
Hi, Rachel.
Hi.
Hi, it's Carrie.
You guys, if you guys are just popping on, make sure that you at followers or at highlights in the comments and get us shared out so we can get as many people on here.
Yes.
Our conversation tonight is going to be full of
depth.
depth for sure.
Yes, definitely.
We're
All
going a
right.
lot deeper this week than we did last week. So,
oh, hello there, Miss Joyce.
Hi, Miss Joyce.
I put a miss on the front of every female's name, so whether you're young or old, you're gonna get the same respect. All right. I guess so. Let me know when you guys are ready for us to get started.
yeah, I'm just letting some people get in here and posting some of our social here so I can get it pinned in the comments.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, that took me over to our, so that is going to be our Facebook. Oh, it doesn't let me. It doesn't let me pin on this one.
Oh, okay.
It's okay though.
Okay.
How is everybody doing today? What's everybody up to on this beautiful Sunday? What's going on?
It's rainy and gloomy here, so I'm in Kansas City, just in case y'all forgot, and it is gloomy. Gloomy.
It was here for the first start of the day, but like I said, now it's actually not too bad. The sun's coming out. It's a little bit breezy, but I mean, it's pretty nice.
That's good. That's good.
You know what's crazy is I don't even know where everybody's tapping in from tonight. You guys drop where you guys are tapping in and
Yeah.
listening from tonight.
As
Where
a
are you
matter of
guys
fact, yeah,
listening?
let us know. Let us know so we can give y'all, you know what I'm saying, a shout out, rep your city.
Right.
Get my dad.
Okay. Yeah,
Let's see who else has popped on. Joyce says just relaxing.
Yep.
That's what I've been
hey,
doing all well. I've been
Sounds about
invoicing
right.
all day.
yeah. It's one of those days.
Yeah,
Sundays are
definitely.
always chill and reset days for me. So, as I discussed on the last episode,
Yeah.
reset days.
Where's
Okay.
everybody tapping in from tonight? Where you guys at? Kansas, Ohio, Mississippi, Texas. Where y'all at?
All right. Okay. All right. Let me do this and then I will be ready.
Hello, Pilar. How are you?
Hi, Pilar.
Hi, Pilar.
Okay. I was just making sure I see our live everywhere. Go ahead and get started, Shalonda.
All right, all right, all right. So, welcome to tonight's episode of Heightened and Enlightened, the live show. I am Shay. You have Ashley here. Wave, Ashley, say hey. Then we have Rolo here.
Ashe.
All right, you guys. And so we are coming to you tonight to bring something new, real stories from real people. You guys get to hear it all. So let me recap last week. Last week, before we get started, last week was introduction. We came on here. If you missed that episode, please go back and you can rewatch it. We always do the replay. You can find it on the Heightened and Enlightened page or any one of our pages, though. So either way, you can go catch that. But that was really an introduction to just, give you guys a feel of us and to let you guys know what we're out here trying to do. So now this episode, we taking it back, way back, because one thing that I have noticed, and Rolo and Ashley, maybe, you guys might have the same experiences or not, but I have noticed that being on this healing journey, you got to find the root cause. And 9 times out of 10, most causes they stem from things that happened to us in childhood. And as you heal, it actually helps when you go back and recognize those feelings, identify them, like accept them, because things that happened to us during childhood was not our fault. And there's nothing that we can do about it, So it's really like we just kind of go back and just try to walk through it and, figure things out. And that's what us three have been doing together. So tonight, we're going to do that with y'all. And tonight, we're going to touch on childhood trauma and what it looks like, how to identify it, and most importantly, how to get through it. Because we all struggle with certain things that didn't go our way in childhood. So, it's time that we talk about that as a collective, because you guys are not alone. You're not by yourself. So you got us here with you. So, hey, y'all, let's dig into it.
All right. So before we start getting too far into it, I do want you guys to know, as the audience, we want you guys to engage. You guys are more than welcome to ask any questions that you have along the way. We do ask that you're just respectful with your questions, and know that, we might not always see the same way you guys do. Our point of views might be different, and it's okay to agree to disagree and still move forward. We don't want any of our views or opinions to make you feel like you can't be here, or for it to be offensive. We all come from different paths in life, different walks in life, and so our views and our visions are different. So please just be respectful. And like I said, ask away, ask questions. Make sure you're sharing the live out to all of your friends. We're here on a healing journey together. We are trying to get as many people as we can onto these shows, because we're just genuinely here to help. That's what this is about for us. God put it on my heart, and then my brother and sister's heart here, for us to reach out and touch as many people as we can. So that's our goal here. Like I said, make sure that you're sharing and tagging. If you do miss the whole episode, you can always go back and watch the replay. We'll have it on our YouTube page, which is pinned in the comments at the bottom. Our TikTok page, you guys can tune in there, or you can come back to Facebook and watch the replay later. If you can't stay, that's fine. Like I said, ask as many questions as you can. We want to hear your input about maybe the childhood trauma that you went through, what you're doing to heal from that childhood trauma, or are you healing from that childhood trauma, or do you have the correct outlets? So with that being said, I will go ahead and pass it over to Rolo, and you can kick us off.
All right. Well, with a lot of us, most of our trauma stems from a very young age. Some people have a hard time identifying that. So our mission is to help you identify those stages, and not necessarily at childhood, but for the vast majority of us, a lot of it starts at childhood. So we want to start there and work our way up so we can make sure that we're healing properly. You can't just start right where you are. You have to start from the beginning. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to heal the way you need to. So we start at childhood. We try to make sure that we get all of that figured out, and then we move into teenage years, adult years, and we go from there. Our mission is to give you pointers that helped us be able to move forward and get to where we are today. Shay.
Yeah, I'm gonna be so transparent with you guys tonight, and I'm gonna be honest. I'm still healing through mine. Like currently, there's a lot of things that I didn't realize were still triggers until now. Even going through this episode, so you guys are getting like raw footage for real, raw footage with me,
Right.
because there's even still things that I haven't even discussed with my family members. And if you guys are watching, just know that I love you. I'm okay. We gonna get through this, but nothing that I say on here is going to be a direct blow to no one, because one thing that I have learned dealing with my own childhood trauma and different children's childhood traumas, like each individual is different, and now that I'm an adult, I try my hardest not to blame. So I don't put any blame on anyone, because now I'm conscious and I can heal on my own. So we're going to separate that. So as we dig into this, just know all my family, all my friends, this is a part of the healing stage, and you guys healing can look ugly. So you're getting raw footage of me tonight.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
I guess I'll say that the reason childhood trauma stands out to me as a topic, and the reason why I really wanted to do this topic, is because it wasn't until I was an adult that I realized that so much of my childhood trauma really shaped the woman that I was, and not in a positive way. I feel like the childhood trauma that I went through growing up, it really put me on a path that I didn't have to take. But at that time, I didn't know that there was a different way to get around it, you guys. And I did drop a question in the comments. That's for the audience, you guys watching. If you guys can just take one second to answer that, just in one word, how would you describe your inner child today? And Shay and Rolo, if you guys could think about that, and let's kind of elaborate on that question, like, if you could describe yourself in one word, today, your inner child, what would it be? Because, I can say that I'm 37 years old now, and I don't think that I fully healed from my childhood trauma. That's how deep some of it runs sometimes. And I don't even think that we realize that it runs that deep until you get into certain situations that trigger you or bring back that trauma. Hi, Michelle. Or bring back that trauma from when you were a child. And it could be like a small situation, like somebody yelling at you, and it triggers like that abusive parent or that abusive family member that yelled at you all the time, or, being in a situation that's not even that traumatic. It could be something small, like somebody at work says something and it triggers you just because you've heard it so many times as a child, or telling an adult, like, I knew you were going to grow up to be like your dad, and you heard that your whole life, and, it triggers you to the core. Hey, Ashley. Your walls are still up. Yeah.
And that's very common.
It is very, very common.
common.
That's very common with childhood trauma.
Yeah.
I can definitely say that my walls are still up when it comes to certain situations, and even through healing, like you guys, I think that we think sometimes that we're more healed than we really are. And then, like I said, you get into those situations with people or like people around you or situations around you, and you realize like I'm really not as healed as I thought I was. You react in a way that shows that inner child, you know, that trauma that you went through.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Um, and a lot of the time, the biggest problem for us is identifying it in the first place. You know what I mean? Because we don't always know. A lot we bury it down so far that sometimes we don't even realize that we're having issues with what's going on right now because of what we had to deal with in the past. And so we need to be able to identify those things in order for us to be able to fix them moving forward. It took us a lot of trauma to end up where we are now. So it's going to take us a while to heal all that trauma. And for most of us, we have children. We don't want to pass that trauma that we endured down to them. That is one thing that I most definitely am adamant about, is not passing that trauma down to my children, because I don't want them to pass it down to theirs.
Yeah.
You know, I want them to be able to cope with things as they come rather than suppress them and act like they don't matter, because they do. If I'm doing something wrong, I want them to explain. I want them to tell me how they feel. That way we can fix it, rather than how I was raised. Like, no, you stay in a kid's place. You know what I mean? And like that, when what I felt was something that truly bothered me, it didn't really matter so much to our parents as it does to us as
Yeah.
parents. You know what I mean? So that's that's a big thing for me, is wanting to make sure that my kids know that they have a voice and their voice will be heard no matter what it is. You know what I mean? And they feel comfortable coming to me and speaking to me about those things, so they don't have to suppress any feelings or any thoughts they have about any situation.
Yeah. I noticed how bad I'm gonna say how can I'm sorry, give me the words, God, give me the words. I identified my childhood trauma when I realized that it was hard for me to open up to a person and tell them that they hurt my feelings. Because as a kid, and being raised with all boys, even though I'm a female, I had the same order as my brothers, like chin up, chest out. You
Yep.
know, there's no crying over here. I couldn't really be a little girl, you know, and I grew up with that hard exterior. And it was like when when my feelings would get hurt, I would result to anger. And I was able, as I was healing, I was able to identify it, because I'm like, I would express anger, but then I would feel like I would want to cry. And
Yeah.
so as I'm healing, I'm like, well, you're not angry, you're sad. And it really took for me to break down those emotions separately, for me to truly see, like, okay, it's manifesting in anger, but you really feel sad and your feelings are hurt. So
Right.
that right there is when I started digging deeper, like, okay, let me figure out what this is. You know what I'm saying? Let me figure out where this is stemming from. And then being a writer, I write a lot. That also, when you're writing and you're letting things flow, a lot comes to the surface. And so for me, that helped me identify what I was feeling, because I was able to write it out and I was able to separate it. So that is how I identified that, okay, you got some major, you know what I'm saying, childhood trauma that you really need to work out, because I didn't want that manifesting in my children either.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, it's funny that you say that, because I feel like you know, that in itself shows the kind of trauma that you've went through. And I think that we see it all too often, that when we were kids, it was hard for us to identify the real feelings that we were feeling, because we weren't allowed to feel those feelings. And I know me and you just recently had a conversation with all three of us on the phone. And I was telling you, like, you know, it wasn't until I grew up and I realized that, you know, my husband leaving home and knowing that he had to go somewhere for a couple of months, I was sad, but that sadness would turn into anger. My son going away for the summertime, like I would be sad, but that sadness turned into anger. Like every emotion that I felt, it would always turn into anger because that's what I was programmed to think. Either
Yep.
you're happy or you're mad. There
Yep.
was no other emotion for you to feel as a child when we were raised. And a lot of times, like that goes into like I would say physical, like when you're whooping a kid all the time too. Like when you get
Yeah.
a lot of whoopings, and I know that's the old school way. I'm not knocking anybody's parenting skills or what you decide to do with your kids.
Right.
I'm not saying that you shouldn't whoop your kids and they should never be whooped. If you whoop them, hey, that's on you. I'm just saying, I believe that when you constantly beat a child, for feeling some type of way that you don't agree with, or them saying things that you don't agree with without being able to express how they're truly feeling, it makes them think that they always have to identify with anger. They
Yep.
always have to be angry. Everything that they say or do makes you angry. So now they need to be angry too. And it creates angry children. And honestly, like we got a lot of whoopings growing up. Okay. And that didn't
Mhm.
stop nothing. I still went to prison. I still
Yep.
was a drug addict. I still did what I did. I still was an alcoholic. I still smoked weed every day. Like, and then when it got to the age where I was in my teenage years, we got so many whoopings. So I think that me and my brother would just be like, well, we're going to get in trouble anyway. So we might as well just go all out.
Yep.
We've been home for away from home for 3-4 hours. We might as well stay away for about 5 or 6 more because we're gonna get a whooping anyway. We're not scared of that no more. That whooping lasts for that long. Where with my son, I try to have conversations to where he understands like the disappointment that comes behind his actions. Like he understands like we could have done things differently, and I want you to think through this instead of like projecting the trauma that I went through as a kid on him. I try to show him like we can think through this. I'm not mad at you. I'm not angry. I don't want him to think that everything he does triggers me or makes me angry. Like I genuinely want him to know like, hey, okay, help me understand why you did what you did.
Yeah.
Exactly. And uh I think that's a lot of the issue that our generation has is we respond to our children in a similar fashion on how we were raised. And that's most people excuses. Well, I was raised getting whooping, so you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Okay, but you still did the stuff that you did. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So clearly that method does not work. Kids are easy to teach. If you
yeah,
just sit them down and explain a situation to them, what's going to happen is one of two things. Either they're going to soak up the game that you're giving them or they're going to learn the hard way. That's it. You know what I mean? But beating them into submission is not how you do that.
yeah.
Because I'm going to tell
Running
you
your
right
house off
now,
fear.
and even yelling at them and screaming at them, none of that works. Because if you're yelling at me, I'm done listening to what you got to say.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
conversation's over as far as I'm concerned. You know
But
what I mean?
and it's
So,
crazy that you say that because us as adults, like if you start yelling at me, I'm going to shut down. But we expect
right.
for a child to listen still, and they can't
Exactly.
shut down, or they have to be in fear that if they do shut down or they show a different emotion than the one that you want out of them right then in that very second, that there's going to be a problem, and that's not okay. And it happens so often. And I think, like I said, I don't blame my parents or fault my parents for the way we were raised, but I think
No.
that genuinely that's all they knew.
Yeah.
That's all they
Like I
knew. That's
said, we teach our children what we were taught. You know what
yeah,
I mean? And we have to be the ones to change that narrative. We have to, because
Yeah.
clearly it's not helping. You know what I mean? I feel like we can get a lot further with our children if we just sit them down and speak to them in a calm voice and be patient. They have to learn. They have to. We
yeah,
didn't learn everything right away, so why should we have that same expectations for our children to learn everything right now?
Correct.
We have to show some patience, and we have to have these talks. And once we do that, I feel like we're going to see way different results than what we showed when we were growing up. You know what I mean? Because, like, I had my daughter young. I had her when I had just turned 16 when she was born. So I tell her, we grew up together. I didn't know how to be a parent at 16 years old. I
Yeah.
thought uh, whooping you for everything you did was how you handled a child. And the fact of the matter is, it's not. You know what I mean? It has the opposite effect. You know what I'm saying? And then what they'll do is, as they get older, they'll start keeping things from you and
Yeah.
lying to you in fear of what's going to happen if they tell
Yep.
you exactly what's going on. I don't want that. I want you to feel
Mhm.
safe enough to come to be like, hey, dad, this is what happened. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And we help each
Yeah.
other figure it out rather than you hide it from me and then end up making matters worse than what they really need to be.
Correct. My biggest thing when it comes to just making sure I break those um, generational cycles, I don't like to call them curses, they're cycles. But my
Right.
biggest thing with breaking that with my children is understanding that communication is like very important. And I try my hardest to listen to understand them. Like, and it gets hard as a parent, it gets hard as a parent. But when my children are speaking to me, even during the hard moments, I'm going to be honest, I always think about what I needed when I was their age. And that's what helps me listen. Because when I was young, I didn't necessarily have the safe space to really verbalize, my feelings and my dreams
Yeah.
and my wishes, and it is what it is. Like we say, our parents only gave us what they knew. So it is what it is, but I didn't have that safe space. So for me as a parent, breaking that, I want to be able to be that safe space that I needed, So that
Mhm.
is like
Yeah.
how I kind of make sure that I don't bleed over into them. I try to create the safe space that I needed.
Yeah. So
That's
I hear us
perfect.
talking about like how the trauma molded us into parents, which I think, um, honestly, I really do believe that that's something that that drove me as a mother, like to be just the best mother I could be, was because of my trauma and the things that I went through. I never wanted my kid to experience any of that. But thinking back, like when did you guys even really start to realize that you had a lot of healing to do from your childhood trauma? Like what age do you feel like that hit you to where you started to really think about, I really went through that. Like I really went through that and I really made it through that and now I need to get through it so I can be a better person for my kids.
Yeah. I would say for me, it was probably 28, probably about 28, 27, when I really realized that I had a lot of healing to do. Um, I was starting to display a lot of the emotions that I had been familiar with as a youngster towards my kids. Um, not not really interested in anything they were talking about. Um, because for me it didn't sound like anything, but for them it was everything. You know what I mean? And feeling like they're not being heard. So when I ask them what's wrong, they're like nothing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because they were expecting me to not really show any interest in what it was that was bothering them. So they
Yep.
would start not wanting to speak to me about it. And that shit, I mean, excuse my language, that kind of killed me because like it kind of killed me because like I want my kids to feel like they can tell me anything
Yeah.
without fear of being judged, without fear of getting whoopings, without fear of getting grounded, like without fear, period.
Yeah.
And I felt like the attitude I was giving them was the same one I was shown as a youngster. And that right there in itself, especially as they get older, because they're going to experience a lot as they're getting older. Going into sports, going into school, different grades, and all this stuff, they're changing. So they're going to want to express those changes to you. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I feel like I was missing a lot of that because they felt like I didn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
So I had to change my way of thinking and change my way of reacting to them so they would feel comfortable enough to come and speak to me.
Yeah. Hey, so Deshawn asked a really good question in the comments. She says, do you guys think it's important to allow kids to make mistakes?
Yes.
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
Yes.
best teacher is your
Life
own,
itself.
yes,
Experience.
your
Yep.
own mistakes. That is the
Life
best.
itself.
Yep.
Mhm.
Because I could tell you
Yeah.
100 times not to do something, but
Right.
unless you do it, you're not gonna know why. I can tell you, hey, don't touch the stove. The stove is hot, but you don't know what hot is because you ain't never experienced. So until you touch it, you're not gonna know what the hell I mean when I say hot. But when you do, you only gonna do it once. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. I feel like kids,
Yeah.
that's what they're supposed to do. They're living in their light. They're supposed to make mistakes. That is the best teacher for anybody, even adults. That's
You
the
know,
best. Sometimes you have to learn that way.
it's
Right.
crazy to think, because I think this relates to my trauma too that I went through with the abuse that I went through as a child, like how protective I am over my son.
Yeah.
And to hear like it is okay for them to make mistakes, like I know that it is, but I think that I try to I wouldn't say shelter, but like keep my son so close to me because I don't ever want him to have to experience anything that might damage him, or that he might make a mistake that he feels like, not that he can't come back from, because you can always come back from mistakes, but that
Yeah.
he feels like he can't come back from, or that he feels like he can't come talk to me about, because honestly, like we were silenced so much as children. I
Yeah.
feel like that's why we carried our childhood trauma so far into the future and so far into
Yeah.
adulthood, until we finally realize like, hey, we really need to work on this, because it's starting to project into our relationships and the people around us. Because we were silenced, we weren't allowed to
Yeah.
talk, we weren't allowed to say what was going on, or we had a fear, or would they even listen, if I
Right.
were to say that this is what's going on right now, or this person's doing this to me, or this happened today at school, like are they even going to listen, even all the way down to small things. Like back then a teacher could say something and whatever the teacher said was golden. The parents never investigated to see like, hey, what was the
Yep.
true scenario behind this? It was just automatic. That teacher said you did something, that's an adult, and that's how it goes. and
Yep.
and for me, like that's not okay. That's not okay. Like as a parent now, raising my son, like uh they're not always right, they're not always
Right.
right, and sometimes your kids have valid points, and I don't ever want my kid to be scared to come and talk to me because he feels like I'm just going to silence him, or I'm going to take the other person's side because that's an adult. Because truth be told, some of the most traumatic things in my life that happened to me came from adults that my parents trusted.
Mm-hmm.
Same.
And so for me, like, I don't care who it is. If my son comes to me and says something about an adult, I'm all ears. I want to hear what he has to say. And I'm
Yeah.
going to look at it from both sides, because at the end of the day, kids know what they're talking about. And I don't
Yep.
ever want my son to feel like he can't talk to me.
Definitely. And that happens more often than not. Um, People have the tendency to prey on children because they know that most of the time, especially the people that you're supposed to be able to trust the most, they know most of the time the parents aren't going to be in, like, they're not going to believe that something like this would happen to you until they hear it enough. And then they're like, well, let me check it out. And then come to find out it really did happen.
Yeah.
So we need to stop doing that as parents. If our children come to us and say something, we need to really look into what it is they're talking about the first time rather than the 100th time. You know what
Yeah.
I
And I'm
mean?
not even just talking about like sexual abuse, because I know,
No, not
um,
that either. Right.
yeah, I know,
Yeah.
because when you say stuff like that, people's mind automatically jumps to that kind of
Right.
scenario, and it's not necessarily always that kind of
No.
scenario. Like it could be something as small as another friend of the family being violent with your kid while you're not
Yeah.
around, and them thinking like, well, my mom whoops me all the time, and she makes them feel like they can do this, so if I say something, not knowing that it's borderline abusive to what they're doing to your kids,
Yes.
not understanding that mental, emotional people talking and speaking into your kids' life, and you not even realizing like this is really mentally tearing your child down. Because honestly, you guys, emotional abuse, that's worse than physical abuse.
It
Like
Yes.
the
really
things that
is.
we say to our kids as parents and that we pour in, like that contributes more to trauma. And that kind of, so Nicole, I was reading your comment and it says you are always good enough. You still have to tell yourself that. I
Yeah.
believe that thoughts like that, when you have to speak that kind of stuff to yourself, that comes from your parents speaking negative to you, and telling you that you weren't good enough, or making you feel like you weren't good enough. And for me, like that sticks with kids longer than you hitting them. Words hurt. Words hurt really, really bad. So
That's the
as
most
parents and as
traumatic
adults,
part
I
are
think
the
that we
things you
really need to be
say. Yeah.
careful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree wholeheartedly with everything you said because that
And
really
Nicole,
is
you are good enough.
definitely good enough.
And
And
Oh, go
Sorry,
ahead,
go
my
ahead,
bad.
Shalonda. Go ahead, sis.
I was gonna touch on something because I want to bring awareness. And some people probably might not realize this, but this is being put on my mind to say this. Something else that causes childhood trauma that a lot of us don't pay attention to is children hearing other adults talk down on their mother or their father.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
That is
Say
like
that.
Yes,
really
Say
big. That's
that.
for
really huge. And
sure.
I'm really big on that because I've never bashed my kids' fathers in
Say
front of
that.
them.
Yep.
And I remember growing up hearing family members talking trash on my parents. And that still stuck with me to this day. Like it still sticks with me. And that's one thing I really don't like tolerate when it comes to my children. Like I don't care who you are, how you're related to them. If you get to saying too much, we're going to exit stage left and we're not going to go
Yeah,
back right. And that's
I
my
agree.
biggest thing. And people don't understand that that really messes with a child. When you hear someone bashing your mom or bashing your dad all the
Yeah,
time,
Yeah.
that seeps in, that gets in you. So it's like, that is something else that I feel like a lot of people don't realize causes childhood trauma. And that's something that we
it
need to
does.
be more conscious of.
Yeah,
It does. And you know what's crazy is the worst is when it comes from your other parent. When they
Yes.
make you feel bad about loving your parent. Like I was so torn as a child because my
yep,
mom and my dad, they weren't together. So I would go over to my grandma's house because my dad was in the penitentiary. I would go over to my grandma's house and my grandma would like tear my mom down, her and my Aunt Michelle. But then I would go over here and my mom would tell me like all these negative things about my dad. I never heard anything good about my dad, but I know I love these two people, you
right.
know? And so for me, I was so conflicted because I felt like if I talked about my mom over here, I was going to be crucified. Or if I talked about my dad over here and it was a bad situation, like I was going to be crucified over here. And for me, like that was the worst. That's the absolute
Yeah.
worst is when it comes
Yeah.
from the mom side and then the dad side. And then this child has to feel bad about loving this other parent. Like
Yeah.
that really creates anger for
It
the
does.
other parent
Yep.
and when the kids grow up like it builds resentment. I really feel
It
like it
does.
builds resentment because a kid loves their parent. It doesn't matter. You could be the worst parent in the world. I know that from loving my son, kids love is the most genuine thing in the world. Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
um Traysiah, I could have been breath stinking, hair all over my head, was up drunk all night the night before, and my son is going to wake up with a smile on his face and love me just because I am his mother. As
Yep.
children, we love our parents no matter how messed up they are, okay? And so it doesn't matter how you feel about your baby daddy or your baby's mother. It doesn't
Right.
matter. Like you should never ever speak that in front of your kids because if in the end, like it's going to make them feel some type of way. When I grew up, I had resentment towards my mother because I felt like she wanted me to hate my father, and that's just something that I couldn't do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that is common, especially amongst the I don't want to say so much the older generation, but
It's common these
I
days
think
too.
it's common with the older and our current generation
Yeah.
is because everybody's always so angry at the other person that they always have
Mhm.
something to say. You know what I mean? And I feel like I've dealt with that a lot. And I've also caught myself almost being guilty of that at some point throughout my life. And I feel like we as adults need to change that for our children. It's okay to be upset with somebody, but not so much that you're criticizing or critiquing everything that they do. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't fall under what you consider okay. Each parent
Yeah.
is different. Each parent is going to show their love or their affection or going to want to do different things with their children. It doesn't all have to be the same. Um, so we need to try and change the way we co-parent. Like it's okay to have an open line of communication. Like, hey, yo, just a heads up, I'm not really cool with that. I understand that's what you wanted to do, but cool. And if that person rejects what you have to say, then it's still okay. You know what I mean? But as long as you make yourself heard in a proper manner, it's fine.
Yeah.
And another thing that bothers me a lot too is when young boys are told to stop crying or stop whining, or
Oh,
Oh
you know
speak
yes.
what I
on
mean?
it.
Because I'm
Speak
gonna
on
be
it,
honest,
Rolo.
I,
Say
I'm
that.
I'm guilty of that at times too, but I'm trying to break that habit because it is okay to feel, it is okay to
Yes.
hurt, it's okay to cry, it's okay to show human emotion. You're not a
Yeah.
robot. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? If you fall off the roof, that shit hurts. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like, so yeah, it's okay to cry. Don't tell
Yeah.
him to get up and quit crying and walk it off. Like, let him express his pain. Like,
Yes.
we have to quit doing that because when we do that to boys as children, when they grow up to men, they don't know how to communicate their emotions,
Say
Yes.
especially
that.
with their
Thank
significant
you.
others or with people in general. They don't know how to communicate. So
Yes.
people they have trouble when it comes to relationships because they're like, well, he just don't know how to talk about this or don't know how to talk about that. Well, why would he? He's never been able to talk about anything that's ever happened. So
Hmm.
when he's hurting or upset, he doesn't know how to express that to you without getting upset about the fact that you're even asking him. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So we have to quit doing that to these young boys and these young men and let them be people. Just let them be who they are. You know what I mean? It is okay to cry. It is okay to show emotions. It is okay to say how you feel and not have to worry about somebody criticizing or judging you for what you have to say or what you feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that goes back to the emotional part. Go ahead, Shalon. I heard you were about to say something.
Oh,
Yeah.
I wasn't. I was agreeing. Go ahead and finish your statement.
Okay. Yeah. I think that goes back to what we were talking about a little bit ago with not being able to identify how you're truly feeling.
Yeah.
And Jose is on here, and I want to just shout him out right now because
Hey,
I was on the phone with
Jose.
him.
Hello, Jose.
Everybody knows I'm really close to his son. I was on the phone with him because Way has been getting in trouble at school. So that he calls me, I'm like his aunt. And
Yeah.
they were talking to me, and I was talking to Way, and I was like, "Why are you getting in trouble at school, buddy?" And he looked at me. He said, "I just get really overstimulated."
Oh,
Yes.
Okay.
that was
For
yeah. That's
him to be as young as he is and be able to identify, like, I'm overstimulated, and so it's making me shut down in school. Like,
Yeah.
it touched me in a different kind of way because we would have never been able to say that as a kid. We would
right.
have
Yeah.
never been able to express that to not just our parents, but any adult in this world that we were overstimulated. Because even if we knew what overstimulated meant, they would have just swore, like, you don't even know what that means. You don't even
Yep.
need to be
Yeah.
saying words like that. Like, we
Exactly.
weren't allowed to be educated enough to know what we were feeling. And I feel like you were saying, Rolo, with men, like they're really not able to feel those emotions or speak on those emotions. So like you said, when they get grown, they don't even know how to tell you what they're feeling because they can't identify with the correct feelings.
Yeah.
It's because they weren't taught that as children. They were taught, like, you're not allowed to feel that way. Men aren't supposed to cry. Men are absolutely supposed to cry.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Period. And that was a lot of my trouble too as a youngster, especially in my early teenage years and like till about I was until probably until about 25, 26. I had a hard time talking to people about anything like that. I didn't want to discuss it. You know what I mean? Because a lot of men, especially when you try to talk to one of your partners, a lot of them be like, "Oh, bro, you tripping, you soft." You know what I'm saying? That's not
Yes.
Yeah.
soft. That's
It's
just me
not soft.
telling. That's just me trying to express to you my problem, and you just writing it off like it ain't nothing. Well, you have to quit doing that because then when I go back to my home and my spouses are like, "What's wrong?" I don't know how to communicate what's wrong with me in fear that you're gonna say something crazy to me, and then I'm gonna get upset. You know what I'm saying? And like, so we have to change the narrative when it comes to that because a lot of men have a lot to say, and they need to stop dismissing what these men have to say. They just need to stop doing it. Like, it's not okay.
That's why it's important to go back to childhood because, like
Yes.
you said, a lot of these men don't know how to express themselves because they weren't able to express themselves as children, and I
Yeah.
pay attention to that. And my biggest thing of keeping, these cycles away is especially with my sons. I try my hardest to listen, and it gets hard, especially with one of them, because I got 2 out of 2. Two ones that make me proud, and two other ones that make me loud. So,
Yeah.
but
Definitely.
my biggest thing is just trying to listen to them, like, and it gets hard, like, as a parent, because it's like we went through stuff as a kid, but then now that we're adults, it's like, as a parent, you have to continuously remember what it was like when you were a child, because that's how you break it. If you're only thinking from your lens, like, I'm the adult, I'm the grown up, you're not going to break the cycle. So for me, when I'm listening to my kids, I always constantly go backwards. Like, okay, what was I thinking when I was your age? What was I feeling when I was your age?
Yeah.
And I have 4 kids. See, you guys out here, I have 4 children. My oldest is 22. I have one 16. I have one 14. Then I have an 8-year-old. So you guys can only imagine how my brain has to work all these times I'm jumping through all these different phases of life. But it's worth it though, because the smiles on their faces and how we get along and how we communicate, it's worth it. Like, I don't care. I'll take it. I'll jump in any time frame I need to understand them better, and so that's kind of what I go through with them. Like, just keeping that in the forefront. Like, okay, these little boys, my sons, need a mother to listen, because if I'm the one that judges them and won't listen, then they're going to take this baggage into their relationship. So I definitely try to cut that out with, especially my boys.
Definitely. And to touch on what Ashley was saying about Jose's son, correct?
Yeah, Wea.
Him saying he's overstimulated in school. Listen, this is my opinion. Children are not meant to sit in classrooms for that long all day. They're not. They're just not. People are not designed to be boxed in, sitting inside warehouses or offices or classrooms all day. Period. That is not who we are. You are pulling us out of our natural element, turning us into robots, and some of us have the ability to fight against that.
Yeah.
Like, that's for a whole nother subject, but that was just my opinion on that. And like, I apologize for getting off topic, but that to me is because that is not how a kid is supposed to be raised. I'm sorry. They're not supposed to be sitting in a classroom for that long every single day. Every day. Like, that is not okay. So we'll touch on that on another subject. But
yeah, that's on another episode, you guys.
go on
I
another
like to let
episode.
Rolo run through on them tangents that he goes on, because he's leading me on into those shows coming up. So yeah, that is going to be one of our shows. So table it. I'm going to go back through the comments here. Let's read some of our comments from some of our viewers here. So going back to Jose says, yes, I'm learning how to react to mistakes and learning little one is going through. He is so smart. I forget he is still young, and I have to learn how to create that safe space with me. Michelle says, I'm 54 and just now remembering things. Oh, I've got a lot to unpack. You guys, we want this to be a safe space for you guys to unpack. That's what this podcast is about, you guys. This isn't for you to get on here and just listen to what we went through. Like, we genuinely want to hear, like, some of the things that you went through, some of the things that you're healing from in your childhood. If you're not comfortable sharing it on the internet, I get that. I'm an open book. I don't care if you have any questions. I will straight up tell you what it is. That's who I've always been, because I'm me. Whether you love it, either you love me or you hate me. Those are the two options that you have. And I feel like as long as I'm an open book and I'm honest with myself and the other people in front of me, then it is what it is. So Michelle, if you're comfortable talking about that here on this platform, you're more than welcome to put in the comments and see if there might be something that we can identify with or even help you through. Kimberly says the verbal abuse, little MFers, just the small negative words talking to your kids. Yeah, I don't call my son out of his name.
No,
I don't call him anything
the
but
most
his name.
I will
Because
admit that I used to. I will admit that I will, tell the truth. I used to, because I grew up hearing foul language. I mean, my mama used to cuss like a sailor. So I had to work through that, because I feel like, for me, I do feel like it was borderline verbally abusive. Now, I didn't call them like dumb or stupid or nothing like that. Like, I didn't tear down their self-esteem, but cussing at them, that is what I grew up hearing. So I did emulate it. And it really took for me to catch I catch myself now. But I had to work on that myself. I did. I had to work on that.
Yeah. And
Yeah, I took on
unpacking
that.
all that as an adult is it's tough because a lot of the times we don't want to face what we went through. Like we just don't. You know what I
It's
Yeah,
mean?
hard.
Especially because it's like you said, it's rough. It's hard. Like it's hard to admit to yourself that these things happened. You know what I mean? And once you do finally tap into it, it can be a roller coaster ride. But as you start to deal with it and face it, it starts to feel better. You start to feel lighter. You start to feel like, well, you start to know that everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Everything's going to be okay. And the fact that we know that there's other people out here who dealt with similar situations, it makes it a lot easier to have these conversations because it's hard to speak to somebody who's never experienced the same thing as you have. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that's another reason why I feel blessed to have the people in my life that I do because we all share a lot of the same experiences. No
yeah,
matter what demographic we come from, we share a lot of the same things. So it makes it a little bit easier going forward to be able to heal from that
Yeah.
because you have people around you who are on that same wavelength as you and they're trying to do the same thing and you're all doing it together. It's a blessing.
Yeah.
yeah. Jose asked, so how do you help them express when they haven't been shown how to express? I can take this one or somebody else can, and not just pop it back to me because I do have something to
Go
say
ahead,
to.
sis.
Okay, so I feel like for me, I didn't even know how to express because of what I went through as a child, into an adult, into my first marriage, into every step until I became a mother. I didn't know how to express. And when my son was little, I vowed to myself that I would raise him to be everything that I wasn't, and never put him through anything that I went through. And so I honestly learned how to teach Traysiah how to express himself from Becca. Becca was like the babysitter, basically. She was more than a babysitter. She was like Traysiah's aunt. She was around for Traysiah's whole life. And me watching her with any kid that was around her, and pulling them to the side and saying, hey, now why would you do that? Think about it. What could you have done differently? And seeing that and the reaction that she got, because I'm not going to lie, from the age of like 2 to 4 with Traysiah, I didn't know what was going on. I think I cried in the corner with him for days sometimes because I couldn't understand like why he was so all over the place, not understanding that he was just being a little boy. That's what little boys are. They're rowdy, they're
Yeah.
rough, they want to be up jumping off furniture and tables, and at school walking across the lunch table, because that's the kind of stuff he was doing in kindergarten. But allowing him to finally sit down one on one and ask him, what made you do that?
Yeah.
Giving him the space to think through what he was thinking, his feelings, his emotions right then in that very second, and then making him know that it's okay to express that to me. And not only that, but letting him know that when he tells me the truth, I appreciate that. I
Yes.
appreciate that. Thank you. Because, we used to lie to our parents so much in fear of getting in trouble. But we were
Yes.
never worried about getting in trouble for lying. So with me, I've always made it a point to tell my son, like, thank you for not lying to me. I appreciate you telling me the truth. Now let's move forward.
Yeah.
And so it gave him that safe space to feel like he could open up and express himself, even if he wasn't shown from anybody else, or I was never shown from anybody else how to allow my child to open up and express themselves. Like, I had to teach myself as a parent, like I had to slow down and step outside of my emotions and my feelings and understand that this is a human. This is a
Yeah.
little human being that is only doing what he's been taught to do, because kids only do what you teach them.
Yep.
They only do what you teach them. You can say all day long, do as I say and not as I do, but a kid is going to do as you do. They're
Yep.
Yeah.
mimicking everything they see in their household, outside of their household, and in the people that you pour into them and allow to pour into your children. If you want your kids to express themselves, give them the space to express themselves, and then take a step back from your feelings, and let them be comfortable doing that.
And I agree with all of that. Like I really do. And it's hard because like, I'm primarily a girl dad, so it's a little bit different for me. But I think that kind of goes with both male and female. Like you have to let them know that it is okay to come to you with anything. You know what I mean? They have to know that you're that safe place for them.
Yeah.
Um, because when I was a kid, I didn't want to tell my mom nothing. You know what I'm saying? I didn't want to tell her nothing. But
My dad's on here. Hi, Dad.
what's up, Pop? Where's Shay?
Is she
Okay,
frozen?
I think so.
Um,
So
She
what I
goes,
what I want to do for my boys is, and my girls too. Um, I want to be the example of what it is to be a person who knows how to communicate properly, who knows how to stay dedicated and committed to whatever it is they're going to do, and to be able to be open and honest and direct with anybody you speak to, not just your parents, but people in general. I want you to be that same way with anybody you encounter.
yeah,
Because if you don't, a lot
excuse
of
me,
people
I'm
will
sorry,
walk. A
guys. I'm
lot
having
of people will
technical
try to walk
difficulties.
over you. So you have to let it be known that you're not that person. You know what I mean? Because I dealt with that a lot as a youngster too, not wanting to really say much and just kind of letting things go with the flow. And then once I got older, I realized, nah, that's not happening. You know what I
yeah,
mean? I'm gonna say what I mean and mean what I say, and we're gonna do what we got to do. And that's how I want my boys and my girls to be. My girls are a little bit better about that because listen, they go hard in the paint. My boys are a little bit different. You know what I'm saying? For real, my boys are they're a little bit different. So hopefully I can get it to where all my kids are like that. But I feel like we all should be that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It helps with the healing process because now you don't have to worry about those little cuts or them little digs from other people or
yeah.
society in general. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, welcome back. We thought we lost you, girl.
Yes, I am
Yeah.
sorry. I was waiting for Rolo to get done. I was having some technical
We,
difficulties over here.
you were stuck on the screen like this.
I don't so that I'm pretty sure everybody was laughing, but it's okay. But you guys, I want to bring light to this comment. First, I want to say hello to my big cousin that's on here, Miss Deborah G. Hey, cousin D.
Hey,
And her comment
Hello.
she put, when we learn that our children are little humans and their feelings are legitimate, some think that just because they're young, their feelings aren't legitimate. And
amen,
that is so true, so true. That is
amen.
what going through my childhood trauma taught me. Like I said earlier, it taught me that communication is key, even though that they're children. It
Yep.
taught me to listen, and I literally look at my children like they are little adults, like because they are little adults. They have feelings. Their brain is processing information at a
Yep.
speedy rate, like and you have to really be careful how you do these little adults. And I
Yes.
tell people that all the time, like even my 8-year-old, he's so intelligent. I look at him as a little man. I mean, and they'll
Yeah,
tell you
Yeah.
Prince is something else. But that's because he's mature, and it's like I let him thrive. I let him live in his greatness. And I didn't know that before, because I
Yeah.
had a kid young too, at 16 as well. I
Right.
got pregnant at 15, had my oldest at 16. So Takia and I grew up together as well. And there's a lot of things that I did not know, but now I know. And it's like I'm able to implement everything that I didn't know before into my parenting now. And it's not too late. So that's another thing. It's
Never
never
too
too
late.
late to correct it. You can always, if y'all feel like you haven't done the best job with your children, no parent's perfect. There's no rule book to this. It's
Yep.
never too late to go back and apologize to your kid, tell your kid you love them, and tell them, explain to them. It's okay to do that because, like we said, kids are little humans and they need the explanation sometimes. And it's okay. Talk to your kid, they'll
yeah,
listen.
yeah.
And see,
Hey,
I'm guilty of
one thing,
that too. Sorry. Go ahead, sis.
one thing that you said that stood out to me, Shalonda, is going back and apologizing to your child when you're wrong. The fact that as a parent today, we can say that you are supposed to apologize to your kids if you're wrong.
Yeah.
Facts.
Like, I think that our parents were so much on a, that's just, I honestly believe that the way our parents was raised is really, like Michelle said, kids were to be seen and not heard. And like,
Yep.
we just really we weren't allowed to have a voice, you know, and if, even if they were dead wrong in that very moment, I can't recall one time until I was an adult, one of my parents coming and saying, "Hey, I'm sorry for that." Or, "Hey, I said something to you that might have hurt you deep, and I'm sorry for that." And, you know, I'm 37 years old, and I just recently had a conversation with my mother about the things that I went through in this last month or two. It hasn't even been 2 months ago. And it's just now at 37 years old to where my mother apologized to me for the things that I went through as a child. Because, and like I told her, I need to heal. And I can't do that without you at least telling me what you were going through, or
Yeah.
what made you do the things that you did as a parent, you know, like what made you, and you know, for my mom at 37 years old to look at me and apologize, the inner child in me cried. And I'm going to get emotional right now
It meant a
because
lot to
still,
me.
like, that inner child, I've been waiting to hear that for so long from her, because when I was growing up, all I wanted was my mother. All I wanted was a relationship with my mother. And then as a teenage girl going through life, and the stuff that I was going through as a teenage girl, and me and my mom not having that connection or that bond, like, that's all I wanted. And I felt like until she could say, you know, "Hey, I messed up," or "I was going through this," because at this point, it's not even about saying, "Hey, I messed up." It's not even about apologizing.
Right.
It's about helping me as a woman understand, like, what were you truly going through, so that I can understand, like, okay, that makes sense, you know. And to have that conversation with her now at 37 years old, you guys, it pushed me into a different stage of healing that I can't explain. And so for you, Shalonda, to say, like, even now you go back and you apologize to your kids now, they won't need that when they get older. That won't be a
Yeah.
part of their trauma that they carry with them. They won't need to hear that, "I'm sorry for what I put you through," because in that moment, as adults and parents right now, we're saying in the moment, like, "Hey, I messed up and I apologize."
Yep.
Correct. And I want to shed some light on the opposite spectrum, because in certain situations and sometimes you won't get that apology.
Nope.
Sometimes you won't. And I want to tell all those people that have not gotten their apology, or, you know, some situations your parent might transition and you don't get it. Either way it go, I want you to know that's okay too. Um, that's okay. You're still able to heal.
Yep.
It's still possible.
Yep.
Sometimes you gotta, with that situation, you gotta learn how to just forgive. Just put forgiveness out there and just go with that and stay with that. Because, like, you know, Ashley's situation is different, but there's some people that will never ever hear that apology. And that's okay too. You know, you can still heal from that as well.
And I also want to say, um, a lot of the times our parents were going through things too.
Yeah,
They had childhood trauma that
yeah,
they never were able to identify, and they
Yeah.
yeah,
projected their trauma onto us. You know what I mean? And that's not me making excuses, because regardless, wrong is wrong, right is right.
yeah,
But like, I went through a lot with my mom too, and I'm not gonna get too deep into it, but like, my mom was a drug addict. You know what I mean? And as far as I'm concerned, what I dealt with her, that wasn't my mom. You
yeah,
Yeah.
know what I mean? But my mom had the courage and the strength to come and be like, I'm sorry for all those years that I wasn't your mom. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
Yeah.
And I understand and I accept that. You know
yeah,
what I mean? I accept that because I totally understand. No, I've never fought with addiction. I mean, but I still understand,
yeah,
because addiction comes in many different ways. It doesn't have to be drugs. It doesn't have to be, you know what I mean? But our parents too are also in their healing process. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Even at their big age, they're in their healing process, because there's
yeah,
a lot of stuff that they had to go through and endure to get where they are. You know
yeah,
what I mean? And I'm not gonna make light of the fact that I was a badass kid. Like, you
Right.
know what I'm
yeah,
saying? So like,
yeah. It was
a lot
too.
of the stuff I got, I probably had coming, but I'm just saying, like, You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? You didn't have to do it that hard, but like, so they were going through things too, and they didn't know how to react to what we were doing. So that was how they were taught. They try to pass that on to us, but we're going to be the ones who change how we handle situations like that with our kids moving forward.
Yeah.
And you know what, Rolo? My dad was a drug addict too, and he was in and out of prison for most of the time when I was a kid.
Yeah,
And I feel like, for me being a girl, I just wanted my dad, and I feel like when he got out, my dad was on drugs, and he spent so much time apologizing
yeah,
because I spent so much time pushing him away because I was angry because I loved him. You know what I mean? And like I said, back to that again, I was never taught healthy emotions or how to identify those emotions. And so I spent so much time being angry instead of just saying, I missed you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
yeah,
Because we weren't taught those healthy emotions. That's a part of the trauma that follows us into those teen years. And especially for girls, when girls hit puberty, when we hit about 12, 13 years old, and we start flowing, we go through a whole different cycle of
Yeah.
life,
Those
and we
hormones.
need, yeah, it's terrible. Okay. And we need like a solid outlet to where we can express ourselves and not have to feel like we're a burden on somebody. And I feel like you're never going to get that from anybody like you're going to get that from your father. A
Yeah.
girl and her dad, like, you're never going to get that. And I feel like a lot of the decisions that I made in life when it came to men was because of the anger that I had for my father.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until I got grown and I started to realize, like, why should he have to keep apologizing when he's done nothing but show me, even in his absence, every time he was around, I knew my dad loved me without a doubt.
Yeah.
No question in my mind. Like, that was one, I knew that he loved his kids no matter what he was doing, whether he was high, whether he was drunk, whether he was out running the streets, he loved his kids. Okay. Because
Yeah.
he would be drunk and fall right up to that quick shop where he seen me walking out of and come kiss me in my mouth as a grown woman. Okay.
Hmm.
yeah.
And tell me I love you because that's my dad. And
Period.
Yeah.
so, but I spent so much time being angry because that's the only emotion I knew how to identify with. I didn't know that I was sad. I didn't know that I was hurt. I was just angry, and I just wanted to be angry, and I wanted him to be angry and hurt too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hurt people hurt people.
They
That
do.
is
That's
so
just,
true.
that's just how it is. And like, in order for us to stop that, we have to fix us.
That
We
is
have
very
to
true.
fix us. We can't continue to treat everybody the way we were treated because we know that we were not treated correctly. We were
Correct.
not treated fairly, but we're still strong enough and powerful enough to change that. And that's exactly what we did. That's exactly what we did. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And yes, we may still be on our healing journey, but who we were is not who we are. Where we
Yeah.
came from isn't where we're going.
Yeah.
You know what I
It's
mean?
not where it ends.
It's not.
Right.
And we have to forgive those and forgive ourselves and move forward and make sure that we show our kids love and affection and attention and tell them that they're amazing and
Yeah.
be proud of everything they do because that's all the things that we wanted when we were younger. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I would have loved to hear my mom say I'm proud of you as a,
Yeah.
as a kid, you know what I mean? And she tells me all the time now as an adult that she's proud of me, and I love my mom dearly. Let's make no mistake about that. That's
Yeah.
my lady. You know what I mean? But as children or as adults now, us, we need to be the ones who tell our children from the time they're born to the time they're 140 years old that we're proud of them for everything they do, no matter
Yeah.
how large or how small the achievement is.
That's
Doesn't
true.
matter. You know what I mean? And you ain't even got to win. Just the fact that you went out there and did it, I'm proud of you for that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So we need to be the ones to set the stage for our next generation to come up and all of our grandkids be healed and have parents that are healed so that way they can change the narrative. I think a lot of the problem is so many people out here dealing with so much that everybody's just so mad all the time. You know
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
I mean? because life is just so unfair. But we can change that.
I have a question for you guys. That's been sitting on my heart for a second. Do you guys feel that, and the audience, you guys can chime in too. Do you guys feel like we ever truly fully heal from our childhood wounds? Do you
No,
feel like it's possible to fully heal from the things that you go through as a child?
I don't.
I don't. I
And
agree
here's
with
why.
Rollo. I don't.
Your brain will never allow it. You may want to, but everything that you endured is always going to play over and over and over and over, just like a song on repeat. You cannot turn it off. You know what I mean? I'm 38 years old and I still play back a lot of the things that I had to go through as a youngster. I
Yeah.
have adult children and I'm still battling with the things that I endured when I was a kid. So
Yeah.
I don't think you'll ever fully heal because trauma is trauma. Like if
Yeah.
you fall on the pavement and you hurt your leg, yeah, the scar may have healed or the where you fell may have healed, but there's always going to be a scar. You're always going to have that reminder of what you went through.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're ever going to fully heal, but what I do think is we'll heal so much that we won't think about it as often. It won't be something that pops up and rears its ugly face as frequently as it did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's my look on it.
Hey, Rolo.
Yes, ma'am.
You kind of keep fading out. If you could just kind of speak up a little bit when you're talking.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
like you, I can hear you, but sometimes you just fade out. So I just wanted to, after Shalonda talks, we're going to go back to the comments. We have a lot of comments that came
Yes,
through, and I
I
want to make sure
see.
that we're talking
Right.
to the audience too. So go ahead, Shalonda, and then we're going to go
I
to the audience.
literally,
Well, no, I was just gonna agree with Rolo, and I was gonna say, like, I don't feel like you ever fully heal from it either. I feel like you learn how to handle it
yep.
better.
Yeah.
Like you don't fully heal, you handle. And that is different because even as a person who promotes healing and man, being on this journey, I'm in healthcare and everything. And I have found that yeah, this journey is the hardest. Like, and I promote this. I teach people breath therapy and meditation and how to center themselves, and I still get triggered, you know. But the difference now, the healed version of me now knows how to handle it better. Like when I am triggered, I'm not gonna fly off the hinges and go negatively. I'm gonna sit with myself and converse with myself and figure it out. Like I know how to stop though that fight or flight. Like I know how to not fight.
Right.
Yeah.
And like
So
Lou said, the trauma may not hurt anymore, but it still
it's
affects the
still
way
there.
you think, speak, and your
Yes.
perspective of the world or your perception of the world. And I agree. It does.
Yeah.
It'll affect every aspect of your life until you're no longer here. That's just
Yeah.
the way it is. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's what we're trying to prevent our children from going through is having to constantly think about those things when just trying to do basic things. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
because it's not fair, but we have to deal with it and we're going to always deal with it.
Yes. We have
Um,
another question that's right there. Are you reading
I
questions?
was gonna I was gonna go back through the
Let's do
comments
it.
real fast. Okay, you guys, so we're gonna push through some comments because I want to make sure that we're addressing you guys.
Yes.
Michelle did come out and she I told her she could feel free to speak here, so I want to make sure that I read her comment. And
Okay.
she did say that one of the things she went through in grade school, where the girls were really mean to her and used to make things to used to say things to make her cry. It started in grade school and middle school, not very often in high school. So that's something I feel like as kids we weren't allowed to really speak on. Bullying wasn't a thing. You're
No.
if they're messing with you, you're gonna get out there, you're gonna put them hands and feet on them, and you're gonna come home. And if you get beat up at school, you're getting whooped when you get to the house.
Period.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Period.
Michelle, we'll touch back on that. Let's finish rolling through the comments, some of the comments. Kimberly said, and this is deep to me. She said, as an older adult, I think I just saw my mom as a woman and not just my mom. Like she had dreams and admirations of her own that she sacrificed for us. That's deep. To
That
me,
is
that's
It
really,
is.
really deep.
It
Um,
is.
because I used to ask Trey Saya all the time when he was little, just sitting across the table from him, because I always wondered like how he's seen me. And I remember sitting across the table from him, and still to this day, I do this sometimes. And I'll ask him, son, what do you see when you look at me?
Yeah.
And his whole life, he said, I see my mom. And I'm like, yeah, but what do you see when you
Yeah.
look at me? He's like, I don't know. I just see my mom. We never take a step back to see like what they might have been going through and why we went through the trauma we went through. And that's why I said, like, talking to my mom and her explaining the trauma that she was going through and the trauma that she went through made me understand a bit more of why she put us through the stuff that she did. And because we never see them other than anything as our moms. We never
Yep.
see the woman in them or the father in them. We
Yep.
see that they're supposed to be this parent that's perfect, and that's not the case.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that is very true. I didn't learn forgiveness until I became a woman because I I had an attitude with my mother all the way until I was 21. Sorry, mom. But
Just
I was,
21, huh? You go,
yeah,
That's
girl.
what I'm saying.
I'm gonna say 21, 22s. It was up there,
Mine
but
lasted a
like,
lot longer. Don't feel bad.
well, yeah, we're gonna get into other stuff later. But just being honest, like I was a jerk to my mom all the way until I fully became a mother. And not even just having one kid, I had to have multiple kids. And when I started, like how Ashley said, you know, kids look at their parent as like this superhero. And when I started realizing that my kids had me on this high throne pedestal that I could never reach, that's
Yeah.
when I was like, damn, you know, well, you need to take it easy on your mom, you know.
Yeah.
And we don't always see eye to eye. We still don't see eye to eye. But I love her, I forgive her, and at the end of the day, I'm a woman now and I understand more now than I ever have. And so that
For
kind
real.
of gives me a little bit of solace.
So that
And
kind of goes with the next comment here.
Okay.
My dad said children don't come with blueprints, and most parents want what they got. But for me, it was learning to forgive, which wasn't easy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
definitely. And
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that because
Yeah.
forgiveness is hard,
It
especially
is.
when you feel like you don't deserve it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's hard to let go of of things when you're like, I did nothing to deserve it. I didn't ask for this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, I understand what he's saying for real. But I'm glad one of the best decisions I ever made in my life was forgiving my mom for everything that I had went through. Because I'm
Yeah.
telling you, had it not been for me going through that, it'd be a totally different version of me. I can assure you.
And
Yeah.
it's true when they say that forgiveness is really for you and not for them,
Period.
because
For real.
boy,
Because toting that luggage around is
yes,
heavy.
it is.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
heavy. So yeah,
Michelle says, I figured no apology, no problem. Forgive and let it go. Hang on to an apology that won't happen brings me down and into a negative life. Not worth letting someone keep hurting me.
Yep,
period.
Mm.
I'm with you.
I
I'm with you,
agree.
Michelle.
That's healing. That's what you call
Yeah,
healing, Michelle.
It
it
is.
is.
When you can accept the apology you'll never get and move forward for yourself and the kind of parent that you want to be, that's healing. That's when you're starting to take a step in the right direction to let go of what you can let go and
Hell yeah,
become a better version of
good
yourself.
job, Michelle, for sure.
Man,
Yeah, I
right.
agree
Like
with
good
that. I
job.
totally agree with
For
Yeah.
that.
sure, man.
Deshaun says, "Are you guys still healing? And what have your and how have your childhood wounds showed up in your adult relationships?"
Mm,
Mhm.
Not being
okay.
able to communicate properly with my significant others.
Yeah,
That was always, and even prior to us just not being able to communicate. I didn't know
yeah,
how to speak uh without getting angry about everything. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So yeah, that's how it showed up for me is just not being able to communicate.
For me, I would say that it showed up a lot in the men that I chose to be with and the relationships that I chose to stay in because I didn't have a positive role model of what it was like for a man to properly be there in your life. And so for me, I just wanted that feeling from a man. I just wanted to feel
Right.
that love from a man that I felt like I should have got from my dad, not understanding that my dad loved me. You
Yeah.
know, I was too young to understand at that time in my teenage years when I started getting out here and laying up with boys and being with different boys to understand like I was only hurting myself. So in
Yeah.
the process of trying to hurt the people that like my mom and my dad, who didn't want me out there doing that kind of stuff, who didn't want me out laying with different boys, and I was hurt myself. But
Yeah.
I felt like that was the love that I was missing. That was the void that I had inside of me. And then even still right now in my relationship, you know, me and Lloyd just recently had a conversation because he tells me all the time, you always want to control everything. That in itself comes from my childhood and the trauma that I went through as a child and having to control everything at such a young age. You know, I was 7 when Brianna was born. And I had the role of a full-time mother put on me at 7 years old because my mom, she was out doing we grew up in the party era, okay? She was
Yeah,
out partying
definitely.
and living her life. They dropped all the kids off in one place if we weren't at home with our siblings. And it was put on me that I had to be this full-time mother at 7 years old. And so I had to control everything about this scene all the time. And then into my teenage years and even adult years, like I don't know how to let go and let a man control what's going on in our household. And it's something that I'm learning right now and identifying because I don't want my husband to feel like that, like he's not sufficient enough to run our household, or he's not good enough to run our household, because he absolutely is. He has everything that I need for him to be able to do that. But because of the trauma that I went through and having to be an adult at such a young age, like I didn't know how to let that go, or even I didn't even know it was a problem. I
Right.
didn't even know it was a problem until it started showing up in my marriage now with this healthy relationship that I'm in.
And I want
Yeah.
to say something. Shout out to my man Lloyd, man. I love him. Like I love Big Bro for sure. Like, hey,
I don't even think he's on here.
you
Okay.
deserve a man like that for real. Like you really do. And I'm glad that he is who he is because he's a great person. So
Absolutely.
shout
Yeah.
out to Lloyd, man.
Shout
But
out, bro.
yes, definitely a lot of the things we do growing up are reflections of what we went through um when
Yeah.
we were youngsters, you know what I mean? Like a same situation like with you, you know, and a lot of the women that I dealt with growing up was in search of something I never got from my mom.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I was lucky enough to find that, you know what I mean? And granted, I almost blew it up 100 times over, but I'm glad that I fixed myself and started healing properly to be able to become the man that you know what I mean, that I am right now for my significant others.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Shalana, did you have anything you wanted to say, or I was going to go back to the
Yeah.
comment?
No, I was gonna answer the question myself.
Okay. Let's do it.
Am I still healing and how did it manifest in my relationship? I'm gonna say yes, definitely I'm still healing. And how it manifested in my current relationships is it manifested as detachment. I
Mm,
recognize because I moved around a lot growing up.
Yeah.
And my father was in prison, my mom, was doing her thing, like taking care of all of us. So I had a lot of people in and out of my life.
Yeah.
And that fear of abandonment like caused me to I'll detach quick. Like I can detach before you even abandon me. Like let me feel like you're getting ready to leave and I'm good. I'm a runner. I was a runner. And now as I'm healing and I'm in a 3-year relationship with someone that I'll actually it's great and I want to stay. So it's like
yeah.
I'm figuring out how to, how to work through the challenges of relationships because the old detached me would just run. And
Yeah.
I also go through what Ashley went, goes through with the control issues. I think it's also a Taurus thing.
Okay, I was going to say,
But
I think that's a Taurus thing too. Me and Shalana are both Tauruses, by the
Tauruses,
way, y'all.
baby. but but I went through that because I'm also the only girl, and there's 5 of us. So I was the nurturer, the caretaker, all that. My brothers still look to me like a mother
Yeah.
figure.
They
So
do.
I've always been that rock. And so for me, it was very hard to not only stay with someone and trust them to lead, but it was hard to even just think about handing those reins over. So for me, that's how it manifested. And when I started wanting people in my life and I felt like I was running them off, that's when I was like, okay, you need to switch up because what how you're thinking is not working. So yeah, that's how it manifested with me.
And see, I want to touch on that too because I'm still learning how to lead my family properly. I never had any real male figures to really teach me how to do that. I had
Yeah.
to learn as I go type situation. You know what I mean? Um, most of the that were in my life were they were all hustlers. You know what I mean? So that for the longest time, that's the only thing I knew how to do. But I developed skills in other areas to help me do something greater than what I was shown.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough to have my pops, Randall Hillsman, shout out to you, who showed me that there was another way of doing things and it didn't have to be this way. There's no one way to get to your destination. There's several.
Mm.
So I'm still trying to do this without ruling with the iron fist, you know what I mean? Because listen, they rough, but anyways, so I'm still trying to figure out how to do this, and it's not hard. It's not,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Because when you're a natural born leader, you pick up on it quickly. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? You know how to listen to the universe, and it'll tell you exactly which way you need to go. You just have to be able. You have to be willing to listen. And
Yeah.
being aggressive and being hostile, chest all puffed out, that ain't how you do it. You know what I mean? That's not how you do it. You
Yeah.
can lead with gentleness and simplicity and compassion and all those things and get to that same destination.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go back to the comments. I do want to say one thing before we go back to the comments, though. I feel like we all talked about how it manifested negatively in our lives. But let me just put this out there and say that the trauma that I went through as a child manifested in a positive way in the type of mother that I am to my child.
Period.
If I could say that there is one, and not only, I'm not even going to say one, because let me tell you something. Childhood trauma was learning how to be out in the streets, survive, and survival mode. That was trauma in itself because at a certain age, the streets were raising me because
Yep.
that's where I chose to be at, was in the streets.
Yeah.
In return, you could put me anywhere on the map with $2 in my pocket, and by the next time you see me, I'm gonna be on.
On
And
God.
And so the childhood trauma, it didn't just manifest negative things in my life. It manifested the woman that I am today. And I don't regret any battle wound, any scar from my childhood. Yeah, I do wish that some things didn't happen to me as a child. And at a
Yep.
younger age, I didn't understand why it was happening to me or why would God let me go through this. I went through a very angry phase with God because I used to feel like if there was a God, why would he let me go through this as a child?
Yep.
Not understanding that that was a part of my walk in life. That was a part of what God had for me. God
yeah.
needed me to go through every step of that to become the woman that I am today, to be able to be sitting here on this platform sharing what I got with you
Yep.
guys today. So
Yeah.
don't
Definitely.
think that childhood trauma, the things that you go through, is just going to manifest all these negative things in your life. It's a part of who you're going to be. When you finally
Right.
get to a point where you start healing, it'll all make sense, and you'll start to see like why these things were good for you in the end, or why this might have helped in the long run. And you'll start to see and you'll start to appreciate. I tell my parents right now today, I appreciate you for everything you did do and everything you didn't do, baby, because
Yeah.
everything you
For
didn't
real.
do is what made me that hustler to make me want to get up and know that nobody's going to give you anything for free in this world. You got to get up and go get it yourself.
Hell
Yeah.
yeah. Yep.
Yep.
So you gotta grind. You gotta get
You got
out
to
there
get
and
out
get it.
here.
It ain't
You
gonna
got to
come
get out
cheap.
here.
And I'm gonna tell you right now, anything worth having ain't gonna come easy.
Yeah.
Not
Right.
gonna come easy. You're gonna deal with some ups and downs. You have to, or you won't appreciate it. You know what I
Right.
mean? And you'll for some reason people are under the impression that they're owed that when they're not owed anything. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
You either make it happen or watch it happen. That's it.
Okay. So Hal Taylor, which is Shalonda's pop. Hey,
Oh,
shout out
hi,
to
Bob.
Hal. I'm so happy to finally meet you. I'm her
Hey,
bestie.
what
I'm
up, Pop?
Ashley. Can't wait to meet you in person. Okay.
Hey,
Um,
brother.
okay, so he says that's applicable to the saying that you can forgive but never forget. It's a discipline that one have to obtain to move forward.
Ooh, yeah.
Agreed.
See, Papa's
Oh,
always
okay, that
dropping
one
some
has to
jewels.
obtain to move forward.
Agreed.
Yeah. He's
Agreed.
always dropping jewels. He's been giving me a lot of jewels. He's a wise man.
See, look,
And
I,
he's
I got
watching
a
from
couple
YouTube,
brothers.
so his
Sorry.
comments don't show up on Facebook. They'll only show up over here.
Okay, so
Okay.
yeah, I can't see those.
See,
Yeah.
I still got a couple brothers who are stuck in neutral because they're unable to forgive and forget what happened. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying?
Yeah,
Not necessarily forget, but forgive what happened to you. You had no control
right,
over that. You know what I
right,
mean? Like you have to let it go in order for
Yeah.
you to be able to move forward. If you're trying to run and I'm holding you by your shirt, you ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
right,
You know what I mean? But as soon as you be like, let go, and I let go, you're gonna be free to move about how you need to. And I
right,
need I need them to understand that. Like you had no control over the things that happened in your life as a child.
Yep.
That was
right.
Yep.
not your fault at all.
Yep.
But also understand you may not get the answers that you want. And that's okay. You can still do what you need to do to be able to move forward and become anything you want to be.
I
Yep.
need to
You
say,
know,
I need to highlight something that you just said, Rolo, because I think a lot of people that are healing need to hear that the stuff that you went through as a child is not your fault.
Not your fault.
no,
Yeah.
The abuse that you might have went through, the whatever it was that you went through, the bullying, the whatever it was, the trauma that you went through, it's not your fault. Okay,
no,
so if you're holding on to it and thinking that you did something to put yourself in a position where you weren't good enough or you deserve that type of behavior, you absolutely did not deserve that type of behavior, and it is not your fault. And you need to
at
stop thinking
all.
that way right now and forgive yourself because it's not your fault.
That's
Yeah.
baggage you shouldn't have to carry because it was not your fault. You
Yeah,
didn't
Right.
it
make that
definitely is not
mess,
your fault.
therefore but you didn't make the mess, but you have to be willing to clean it up
Yeah,
Right.
for the benefit of you and your
Right.
future generations. So, yes, like she said, it is not your fault. You didn't make those decisions. They were made for you. So, forgive, move forward.
Right. I
yeah.
don't like the term forgive and forget because, like we
No,
established, you
I'll
don't
never
really
forget.
forget.
no,
Yeah,
hell
you'll
no.
never
No.
forget.
No.
But like Rolo said, forgive and move forward because
Yes.
Yes,
that's really what it is. And you
yes,
can't move forward until you learn forgiveness.
Yep.
Not saying that you need to run to the other person and, hey, I forgive you, but you have to
No.
find a way to have
oh
forgiveness
no,
within your heart. You have to find a way to say, okay, and the forgiveness for you is finding peace. That's
Yep.
really what it equals out to. It's you finding peace, saying, this is not me. This just happened to me. And
Yep.
that's important to tell yourself all the time. Because I tell myself that all the time because I've been through it so much. I tell myself constantly, every AM when I rise, I look in the mirror and I look and I say, this, what happened to you was not you. That's
yes,
something that happened to you. It's
yep,
separate. You can heal from that. You can move from that. And you are wonderfully made. And I feel like everybody should tell themselves that. If you're struggling, period, just tell
Yeah.
yourself that.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
and I want to say something real quick. Lou Ann's on here said my trauma helped me realize what my purpose is in
Oh,
life.
I was gonna
Um,
touch on that, baby.
Yes, yes,
for those
yes.
of you that don't know, Lou Ann is my oldest daughter. Growing up, there was a lot of situations. Her mom had got in trouble for dating me, and I was a ward of the state, so I wasn't around for a lot of her life because I was a youngster. I was out here living my best life and being negligent to her, and that didn't mean I didn't love her. I just didn't know how to show it uh,
Yeah,
until I finally was like, you know what? It's not sitting right with me watching her grow up without me. You know what I mean? So when I came home, we had a deep conversation, a very emotional one, and I apologized to her for everything that I had been through and everything that I had put her through, and so we got past that, and
Yeah,
because she went through that, now she wants to be a child therapist. So I just
yeah,
want to say I'm super proud of her. She could have went either way because, like I said, we grew up together. She saw a lot of my bad habits growing up. and a lot of the stuff that I was into, and she chose to be something greater than what she was shown. So I'm very proud of her. Um, and I apologize for what I put her through.
Oh,
And I love her more than anything in this world. And
Oh,
baby girl,
so,
you're gonna be amazing at what you do. I guarantee it.
amen.
yeah,
Amen. Accept
yes.
and receive that, Lou. You have an amazing father. I
Yes.
am going to go to the comments. We have some from Jessica.
Hi, Jessica. I've been
Hi,
wanting to say hi to you,
Jessica.
boo.
Hello.
Thank
All
you
right.
for supporting.
Jessica says, it really is for you. We can't hold on to poison thinking it's going to hurt the other people. Oh,
Yeah.
the other person. We have to look in the mirror and figure where we need to grow, where we need to do the work. Amen,
Yes,
girl.
yes,
Amen. You
most
know,
definitely.
one thing that was always hard for me to do was look in the mirror to see myself, and not just in a, I mean, like physically look in the mirror at myself and stare at myself, because sometimes I didn't even know who was looking back at me. And I think
Yeah.
that is what made me as a grown woman, because even a year ago, it was hard for me to look in the mirror and say, who am I? You
Yeah.
know, who am I? Who is Ashley? My dad asked me a question when I lived out in Virginia, and I'll never forget it. I was just coming from being clean. My dad came and got me. Anybody who knows me knows I went through a drug addiction for a while. My dad came from Virginia to Kansas to come and get me so that I can go get clean at his house. And he asked me when I was out there, you know, what makes you happy? And when he asked me, I said, my family. And he said, no, what makes you happy?
Mhm.
And do you know I couldn't answer that question? And do you know a year ago, I couldn't answer that question? And looking at myself in the mirror, I used to look at myself and think, like, what does make me happy? Who am I? You know, who am I? Because I had been so consumed with the relationships that I had been in the past, that I started to take on the identity of these men that I was with. And not just the men that I was with, but my family members. Like, I
Yeah.
was always such a giver and pouring into my family, to my little sister and to my brother and to all of my family. I've always had this, I just love my family. And I've always spent so much time pouring my happiness into them, even if I was sacrificing my own, that I didn't know what made me happy. And you know, and now at this age that I'm at, I love looking at myself in the mirror. I know who I am. I know what makes me happy, you know, and it's the first time in my life that I can get on here live and say, I know what makes me happy. I know who I am, you know, and I know that there's probably a lot of people out there that might be older than me that still don't know, like, what makes you happy, not another person or an object, but
Right.
what genuinely makes you happy as a person, you know?
Yeah.
What's your get up and go, not somebody else? What are your dreams? What are your goals? Like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Even if you're older
Right.
than 37, what do you want to be? What do you want to do? What is God's will for your life, and what does that look like for you?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
People, I think we need to learn to show the kind of love we want to be shown. You know what I mean? Like, and I know that's hard for a lot of people to do, but I feel like we just need to show others and show our significant others the love we want to be shown. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? The love we never received. We need to be able to show that side of us. You know what I mean? Don't show the highlight reel you, show the real you.
Yeah.
That's what we want to see. That's what our kids and our spouses deserve.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
yeah,
big on that. I'm big on
Yeah.
being really transparent with my children because I want them to always see that. Like, even though they look at me as Superwoman, I want them to see that mommy's human. My kids have seen me cry. My kids have seen me overstimulated. Like, I will go to them, I'm sorry. Like, they've seen it all because I
Yeah.
want them to see that, you know? And touching on actually touching on how you said that you had a lot of responsibility and stuff growing up and everything. For me, I feel like that is also a blocker when it comes to a child truly expressing themselves and truly tapping into themselves. Because back in our days, it was you watch your brother and sister, you be here
Yeah.
with them. You know, our
Yeah.
parents went off and did them, made money, whatever they needed to do. Now, granted, they would be working, taking care of the household, but it was still different. You know,
Yeah.
for me, um, even though my kids are like years apart, I make a point and purpose. My oldest is not raising my youngest. Those are not her kids. You
Yeah.
have the opportunity and the space to still do what you need to do. I laid down and had these kids, so I will rearrange my life to fit theirs. I'm
Yeah.
not going to make my other child raise her siblings because I chose to have more kids. So that is something also that, because I feel like that was done to me. Like all I ate, slept, and breathed my brothers, and to the point to where I didn't know what I wanted to be either. I couldn't look in the mirror myself. All I could see was my brothers. I'm there for my
Yep.
parents. You
Yep.
know, like I'm there for everyone else, but I didn't have any love, time, energy, or effort for myself. And
Yeah.
it took
Yeah.
for all of them to live their own lives and to leave me alone for me to finally, by then I felt lonely, like I was left by myself. Like my brothers
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
incarcerated. My
You
parents moved
became
out of state.
codependent.
Yeah, like so
You
then I'm
became
sitting there by
codependent.
myself,
Yeah.
like dang, what do I do? You know, like what about
Mhm.
me? You know, I felt lonely and desperate. And then I had to, that was when I looked in the mirror and was like, okay, now you matter, because clearly everyone is going to live their life, so you got to figure out for you. And that is something that I carry in my parenting with my children, because I tell my children all the time, at the end of the day, I'm your mother. I know you love me. These are your siblings. I know you love them, but I don't want you only living life for them.
For them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You matter.
Yeah.
You are important. You know what I'm saying, can do whatever you put your mind to. So that's something I keep in the forefront, like with them. Like I don't feel like we should be making our children raise the other children. They didn't have them.
Nope.
Yeah. And I wrote that down as one of our topics: children raising children. And so we're gonna get together
That
and we're
creates
gonna figure
childhood
that out.
trauma though. So hey, we hit on it.
Hey, listen, I
Yeah.
want to say it's more prevalent now than ever, but I can't say that because I had my daughter when I was 16.
Yeah.
So you know,
Yeah. And
clearly it was
that's what
happening back
made me
then
write it
too.
down, was listening
Yeah.
to you and Shalonda and the struggles that you guys went through as children, raising your own children, and the things that you put your oldest kids through because you were a
Yeah,
child raising a child. And
Yeah.
to see like the love that you have for Lou, and the way you speak about your daughter like that, it warms my heart as a girl dad. As
yeah,
mean as a daddy girl, like I love my dad. I love him so much. And so to hear you speak to your daughter like that, like you just really don't know, like as a father pouring into your daughter, what that does. You really don't understand like how far that's going to go in her relationships, no matter what you put her through growing up. Like she needs that right now going into
really.
womanhood. She needs
Yeah,
that man to still be there to pour into her and say, hey, I'm proud of you and I see what you're doing.
Yo, she's
yeah,
accomplished so much, even though she endured so much as a youngster. I can't take that from her. That's something she
yeah,
earned and
Yeah.
something she chose for herself. And I'll no matter what she chose to do, I'll always be proud of her. But I'm glad that she chose something that was relative to the life that she lived. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
yeah.
And I couldn't be more proud of her. Like, man, she's so dope, y'all. I can't wait for y'all to meet her. The audience, you
I,
guys already met her,
I was
but
about to say we've met
yeah,
her.
yeah,
I
you
was going to
guys have
say,
met her,
yeah.
but the audience, I can't wait for them to meet her because man,
Yeah,
she is so smart. Like, she really is.
yeah. That just goes to show that no matter how old you are, you're always gonna need your parents. Like, and it is at what it is at the end of the day. I'm very independent. I'm super independent. I'm proud of myself for how independent I am in life. But I
Yeah,
still need my parents. I still
yeah,
need my dad. I got two dads. I got two awesome dads. But I got a dad that made me and a dad that raised me. But I still
yeah,
need both of them. I still need my mom.
Yeah.
There's things that I face in life that I want to talk to them about, like, to hear their insight. Sometimes I don't, but sometimes I do.
Yeah.
And I just
Still
keep that
to
in
this
mind.
day.
Huh?
yeah.
Still to this day. Sometimes I don't be one to hear that. Okay.
Right. I
For
mean, but
real.
at the end of the day, you still need them, and
Yeah,
and and I keep that in the forefront now that I'm a mother. Like, hey, no matter how old your kids get, they still gonna need you. They're
Yeah,
still
oh
gonna
Yeah.
yeah.
need to hear those
And
words. I'm proud of you. I love you. I apologize. All that stuff still matters. All that.
I
Yeah.
love my mama. I'm a mama's boy. I'm not even gonna lie. Like my mama's is everything to me. And like I said, I forgive everything she did and everything she
Yeah.
didn't do because she was young too. You know what I'm saying? My mom had me when she was 16. So,
Yeah. So
you
I
know
have a
what I mean?
question, Rolo.
Yeah.
Because I listen to you and I
Yeah.
hear like um your mom was a lot like it sounds like how my dad was, like the hustler, go getter, a
Yep.
drug addict out here in the streets, like showing
Yep.
you all the wrong ways to live. And I feel like it builds resentment. But at what age do you really think you started to look at your mom like, I appreciate you, like I respect that. I respect what you went through and I really appreciate you and I love you more than I ever could have thought about loving you, because of the resentment it kind of takes away from that.
Honestly, it was. I would have to say probably about 25. Like
Yeah.
that's when I really started to understand more of what she was doing. You know what I mean? As far as her being out there getting to it, you know what I'm saying, and stuff like that, trying to make sure she provided for her family by any means. Uh,
Yeah.
and listen, I'm gonna tell anybody, I'm not an advocate in no way, shape, or form for the hustling activities or anything like that. But listen, whatever you got to do to make sure your family is taken care of, I commend you, and I'll never criticize you for that because this society was not designed for us to be successful. Anyways,
Mm.
um, so yeah, like I at 25 I realized it because I was out here doing it and I was out here getting to it, and just that mentality that she instilled in me before she went off the deep end, you know what I mean, off on her little drug thing and shit, just kind of helped me. I'm so sorry about my language, people. It helped me like be able
That's
to
why we do these
understand.
raw and uncut. It's fine. Just
Right.
keep going.
But no, it helped me understand why she did it. It wasn't about her. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Because if it was, she wouldn't have had to do any of the stuff she did. She wouldn't
Yeah.
have had to. But when you
Yeah.
have children and you have people depending on you, you have to do what you have to do. I'm sorry, you
Yeah.
just have to. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Because kids don't understand why they can't eat or why they can't do this
Yeah.
or why they can't have that. And most parents
Yeah.
don't really know how to explain it to them. You know what I mean? In terms that they can understand it, because yeah, we can
Right.
offer an easy explanation as to why we can't do these things, but
Yeah.
they won't understand.
Yeah.
So we have to go out there and get it any way we can. And I
Yeah.
learned a lot of that from her, that mentality from her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I remember there were times when we didn't think we was gonna get anything for Christmas. It was Christmas Eve. You know what I'm saying? We didn't have nothing under the tree. But I guarantee you when we woke up for Christmas, presents
She was there.
piled to the ceiling. You know what I mean?
Hey, but
Because
you know
my
what?
mom went and got it.
Hey, you know what though, Rolo? One thing that I've learned being a parent to my son is they don't even care about that.
They
Just
don't.
being
Most of the
completely
time they don't.
transparent, just being completely transparent. Like, I think if I could have just had my dad or, my dad around for the holidays, I would have been okay with just him being there opposed to him
Yeah.
coming with new shoes or new clothes or something like that. Like, and it wasn't until me raising Tresiah that I really see like they don't care. They want
Yeah.
that time. They're gonna remember the time that you spent with them. They're not name one Christmas gift. Okay, not one because everybody had a favorite Christmas gift. Name three Christmas gifts that you got from your mom that you remember that you just held near and dear to your heart.
Yeah.
I mean, none of it
I
really
can't think of
matters. You know
one.
That's
what I mean?
I can't
Yeah.
I can't I can name one that I got from my grandma and it was a light bright. That's
Yeah.
it. And that's
And
because I
don't get me
really wanted
wrong.
that light bright. But
Like I
other
was
than that,
happy
I
at
don't
the
remember none of
time.
them.
Yeah. Like I was
Yeah.
happy at the time, but I was just
Right.
happy to be around my peoples. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like for real, for
that's
real.
what it was
And
about,
and and that's what I feel like that's how my kids are. You know what I'm saying? But I think it's not so much for them as it was for me, as me trying to be a provider for them. You know what I mean? Like me give them what they want, not so much that they wanted those things. You know what I mean? So Yeah, man, my mom, like, shout out to my Dukes. Like, she was out here, she was doing the most. But like, I'm so happy that she my mama for real. Like,
Yeah,
I would never in a million years change her for anybody. Like, that's my lady.
yeah.
And we like twins because we look just alike. But
I've
like,
seen your mom. I know.
yeah, like,
I
so
know.
I
I
mean,
know y'all look
I
just alike.
appreciate her showing me
She
those
just got
ways.
hair.
Yeah, what? Come on now. You made me forget what I was saying.
You almost took him off track.
Yeah, she did.
She just has hair. We're gonna jump back to the comments. Are you guys good with that?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So Terry says, well, my dad says, sounds
Right.
like you've learned how to stay in that peace that you speak of. One of the most valuable lessons you'll ever learn.
Yes.
Because can't
Yeah.
nobody be at peace.
No.
Michelle says, at my age, when you have forgiven and let go, eventually those traumas will not show up as much.
Yeah.
Shannon says, my trauma has me trying to figure out who I am now. The best advice I can give you for that, Shannon, is to disconnect completely.
Yep.
Yep. You
When you
have to.
disconnect completely from everything you've ever known, you will never know yourself until then.
Yep.
Yes. I always tell everybody it's isolation before elevation.
Yep.
Isolation before elevation. Remember that,
I
because
went
that
through
is
the
when
same
you
thing.
endure the most growth.
Yep. I had to cut everybody off. I just
Mhm.
had to, because I feel like when you're around a bunch of people, you start to pick up on what they're putting down instead of picking
Yeah.
up on what you're supposed to be doing for you.
Yeah,
Hmm.
And you'll get lost in that cycle of trying to be around everybody else rather than building your own self up. And I
Yeah.
did. That's what I did. Like, I just cut everybody out. I didn't talk to nobody for like a couple years while I was out here going to school and doing all the stuff that I wanted to do for me.
Yeah.
yeah,
And I'm glad that was the best decision I ever made in my whole entire life. Like, was
yeah,
just
That's important.
disconnecting and challenging myself and doing all the stuff that I wanted to do for me with the support of my family. You know what I mean? And that's when I learned how to meditate. That's when I learned about grounding. That's when I learned about uh, spiritual enlightenment. Like, I learned a lot. And that's when I figured out who I was, is when
Yeah.
I got away from everybody else. You know what I mean?
Right.
okay. Jessica
He
says,
said I got air.
I seen that. Jessica says you hit the nail on the head. When you wear so many hats, mother, wife, caregiver,
Yeah.
employee, we often put ourselves in the back seat. I have learned
Yeah.
that I have learned this in the last few years. Any given day, I could say what my kids like or what my family likes, what they like to eat or wear, what makes them happy or sad, but I couldn't do it for myself.
Mm.
So it's been a journey for me to show up for myself, and as much, if not more, than I do others. Amen. And until you
Okay.
understand that it's okay to be selfish with yourself,
Yes.
Yes.
it's
Yes.
okay. It's
Don't
okay.
Yes.
And a
ever
lot of
stop
people don't
showing
like the
up for
word
you.
selfish, but at the end of the day, being selfish with yourself is all about growth.
Yep.
Learning
Hmm.
to say no and to pull back in situations that make you uncomfortable or threaten your peace, baby, that's okay.
Yes, it is. It is.
Because you and your family deserve the best version of you.
Right.
That's just bottom line. They deserve the absolute best version of you. And that's how you do it, is making sure you invest in you.
Yeah.
Yes.
My mom is on here. Hey, mama.
Hey, Mama Do.
What's happening?
She said, and your parents need you. I need my kids so much. And Shannon said, we need our kids too.
Yeah.
Um, Jose says, I love you saying that you have a dad that made you and a dad that raised you.
Yeah.
Um, my dad says, I wasn't showing you how to live. I was showing you how to survive because I didn't know how to live. I couldn't teach you what I didn't know, but now I am who I am. I know the difference between living and surviving.
Yeah.
Dad, listen, I
Hey.
appreciate you. My mom and my dad are on here. I appreciate
Solid.
both of you guys, okay? For teaching me everything you taught me, all the things that I learned from the streets, everything that I learned in the penitentiary, every piece of me as a woman. came from the type of parents that you were, whether it was the right way or the wrong way. And now that I'm 37 years old, I can say that I appreciate the woman that I am today. And it's because of you guys being the parents. It's because of you teaching me how to survive. Because I look at some of these kids that were raised with silver spoons in their mouth. They never had to ask for nothing, want for nothing, need for nothing. They don't know how to live.
Nope.
They are
Yeah.
codependent to the point where they are okay with living in this darkness that they'll never come out of because they choose not to, because they don't know how to. They don't
Right.
know that you have to chin up, chest out, and get up and keep going, because they
Yeah.
were never taught that. They were taught that it's okay to go lay down for the rest of your life and you don't have to get up because I'm going to take care of you. No worries, I got you. No, we didn't have that growing up. We didn't have
Yeah.
that. We knew that we had to get up because my dad used to tell me all the time, nobody's going to give you nothing for free in this world.
Yep.
You're going to
Mhm.
get up and you're going to go get it. So I appreciate you teaching me how to survive. And I appreciate you teaching me how to live now that you know how to live, and the game that you've given to me about the businesses and EINs and all the different things that I'm trying to do right now. So
Yeah.
That our parents is what helped us become the the people we are now. And the people we are now are business owners, entrepreneurs, healers.
yeah,
Uh, you know what I mean? Like we are great. Our
Yeah.
situations made us great. It taught
Yeah.
us how to become more than what our environment told us we were supposed to become.
yeah,
And I like I said, I thank my mom all the time. I don't think I thank her enough for everything that she taught me, everything that I went through, because I mean, look where we are. You know what I mean? We weren't supposed to be here. I want you to know that. Society told us we weren't supposed to be here.
yeah,
Yeah.
And that's what they do. They tell us where we're supposed to be and what we shouldn't be doing, and here we are, because we healed ourselves enough to be able to look past the curtain that, or the blindfold that they tried to put over our eyes. We
yeah,
Yeah.
didn't we didn't decide to stay inside that box they tried to put us in.
yeah,
And we
Yeah.
created the life that we felt like we wanted for us. And we're still creating that. We're
Yeah.
still creating that. And our kids are watching us create that. And that's
yeah,
going to open up their creativity for them to create exactly what it is they want. So
Right.
I'm proud of us. I'm proud of us. And like I
yeah,
said, we're still in our healing process. This is going to be
Yeah.
a lifelong thing. It
It
is.
is. It is.
But it gets greater later. It's continuing to get greater. Period. And
yeah,
there's nothing stopping us. There is no ceiling. You know what
yeah.
I mean?
Right.
There is no walls. We've torn all that down, and now we're doing exactly what we want to do.
Yeah. One thing
I
I've
will
noticed,
say, go
uh-huh.
ahead, Shay.
I was gonna say when it comes to healing, if I know we're saying childhood trauma and everything, but I've noticed with my personal life that when you start looking at that trauma and start being grateful for even the trauma, being thankful and being grateful, it kind of leaves room for more healing. And that's
Yeah,
Oh
important.
yeah,
That's like very important,
yeah,
like with everything that Rolo was saying, I just wanted to add that in. Like looking at that, being grateful for that trauma is what keeps me going and what lets me know, like Rolo said, it's going to get greater later because I'm grateful for everything I went through. Like I
yep,
have no hatred in my heart. I'm not angry. And that's what lets me know that I'm on the right path. And so I tell
yeah,
everybody, always be thankful. And the bad stuff, yes, it hurts, but
yeah,
it's just preparing you for this next phase of life. Because
yep,
one thing that I feel like everyone can agree on, if you can't handle something small, you're not going to be able to handle anything big.
say
So it's
that.
important to be grateful for all of it.
Yeah, yeah, and just to piggyback off of that, and then we'll kind of start to simmer it down, you guys. The things that we went through, and I know this from talking to it and us being on the phone talking to you two all the time, it gave us a sense of humbleness too.
Yeah.
that I appreciate a lot because, you know, being out in the streets, having all the money, having all the girls, having all the men, doing all the things that we've done in life, like it creates a sense of arrogance,
Yes.
that you feel untouchable and you feel like you don't have to forgive because you don't need
Yeah.
nobody. They don't need you before you need them. But being in
Mhm.
the era that we're all in right now and collectively being able to have those conversations on the phone, where we are, the sense of humbleness that I hear in our conversations and wanting to get on a podcast like this and reach back to the people who are out there struggling like we did or are we still are, you know. For me, like that's a God thing. That's a humbleness that you can only get through the struggles that you've been through.
Yep.
And along the way to be able to show your kids like don't ever think that you're above somebody else or
Mhm.
just because their struggle is different than yours that you're better than them or just because you dress better than them that you're better than them. Like we're all on the same playing field, you know.
Yep.
We all have the same 24 hours. Some just get out here and go get it a little bit harder than the next one. And some people don't know how. They don't have, like when we were growing up, we didn't have those mentors to show us
Yeah.
how to get out here and get it in a legitimate way. So we chose the streets, you know,
Yeah.
we chose to get out here and get it how we could because those are the influences we have. And now we're trying to be the influences for the next generation that get out here and show them how to be entrepreneurs, how to own businesses, how to create
Yep.
generational wealth. Like that's really when we get on the phone, us three, like that's the conversations that we have. How are we
Yeah.
going to create generational wealth, not just for our families, but for the community around us? Because it's not
Yep.
about us. God never blesses you for yourself or your family.
Yeah.
He's blessing you for the community and the people around you because
For the
it's
greater
not just
good.
for us to win. It's for us to collectively grab our people to come back with us. And
Period.
so
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to do with this
Yep.
podcast and be able to reach back to our communities and tell them that it's okay to get out here and say, I'm still healing, or I don't know how to heal, and to find somebody to reach out to say, hey, I know you've
Mhm.
been through this, help me through it, you know.
Yeah.
I need help me, you know, and not just financially. Like I know a lot of people reach out and they need financial help and stuff like that, but what about emotional support?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, what about having somebody to just call on the phone and cry because you've had a bad day without feeling like you're a burden? Like that is so rare to find. And
Yeah.
I think that we've been blessed enough to have the community that we have now and the genuine people around us. And I pray that everybody that's watching this podcast, that you guys find that community or that
Yeah.
you guys are able to reach out to us and let us be that community with you, because we're here for that. You know, like we want to hear your ideas. What are your dreams and goals? Like what makes you happy? Like before next week's episode, I really want you guys to really think about like, who are you? What makes
Yeah.
you happy?
Yep.
What makes you get up and go, not for somebody else, but for you?
Definitely. I
Yeah.
agree with all that. Like
Yes.
definitely that was a powerful message for sure. I think more people need to realize that and like try to create a community or join one because yeah, we can move forward as individuals or we can move forward as a collective and we can all get on one accord and heal properly. You know what I mean? It just depends on the type of people. You know what I mean? I understand some people only want to heal for themselves, and I get that. You know what I mean? But like you said about the community, it helps having people that you can talk to on a regular basis. You know, I pretty much I talk to you guys every single day. You know
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
mean? So like and that helps even if we just get on the phone and joke and laugh or whatever, but it still helps to have that bond with somebody outside of yourself.
It takes a village. It takes a
It does.
village not only to raise a kid, but it takes a village to heal, you know? That's important. And I say that even just being a medical professional, because if you think about it, when you go to the doctor, you have your PCP, which is your primary care physician. Then you have specialists. You have the gastroenterologist. You have the oncologist. You have the nephrologist. You have so many people that are working together to help you heal.
Yeah,
So we're just more people a part of your village. You know what I'm saying? So,
definitely.
we need healing all the way through mind, body, and soul. And I always say, like, if you start small, it kind of helps kind of deter some of the big stuff later on. And that's important. So we're here to be a part of that small village, that up close village, that personal village, and we're always going to be here. So I'm telling you guys personally, if you ever want to reach out, you ever want to, need help with some guided meditation, you just need a listening ear, or you just need positive words, don't ever hesitate to reach out to any of us. That's what we're here for. We're a part of your village now. Welcome.
From the hours of 10 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Right.
You can reach out to me anytime, okay? If I don't answer you tonight, I'll answer you tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah, right. There you go. We'll do it like that.
All right, you guys, we're going to open it up to questions from our viewers. Does anybody have any questions or follow-up from our viewers? I'll give you guys just a couple minutes to come through in the comments. You guys are more than welcome to ask any questions that you have to Misha or Rolo. We will answer them, full transparency. Anything that you guys want us to go back to or retouch or touch on again from the podcast, now's your time. Come on through. Come ask those questions, you guys. Statements, they don't have to be questions. Any statements, anything that stood out to you guys throughout the podcast. Highlights for you guys. Let us know what you guys are thinking.
Yeah,
that's pretty exciting. So what about next week's episode? Pretty exciting.
So we're going to talk about next week's episode. Give me just a second.
Let me give them a little bit. Yeah.
Let me pull up my little thing here.
Next week's teaser.
We're going to wait for the audience. We're going to wait to see if the audience has any questions before I give them the tea for next week. Unless you guys just want me to right now.
Michelle said we feel like family. We are, Michelle.
Period. Yeah.
You got a new family.
Yup.
That's the whole point of this. Like, I'm glad, like, that warms my heart to even see that comment, because that is the point and purpose.
Yes.
We're trying to create this, and I'm not going to keep saying trying, because we are, but that is why we are here. We want everyone to know that you're not by yourself. You're not crazy. You're not alone. And you got people out here that even if we don't relate to you, we understand. And sometimes that's all you need. Just someone to say, I get it.
Yeah.
And even if we don't fully understand, we're definitely trying to.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, and we don't care how crazy you sound, because I can tell you some really crazy things. You know, you can
we got some wild stuff that we can't even put online, but
definitely. Definitely.
All right, guys. So I don't see any questions or anything. So I'm just going to assume that we did a good job explaining tonight, that you guys don't have any follow-up questions. So tonight, you guys know we talked about childhood trauma, the things that we did to overcome, some of the parenting styles that we got from the trauma that we went through as kids. And so next week, the next week's episode, we're going to be talking about let's see, new age parenting versus old age parenting. So I want you guys to make sure that you tune in next week. We're definitely going to be talking about different parenting styles from our point of view as new day parents. I would like some of the old school parents to make sure that they're on next week, because I definitely want to hear from them. I definitely want to hear from you guys, because I know y'all say we're soft and all that good stuff. I know that some people are probably going to think that my views on parenting are very controversial because how I am with my son. But that's okay. Rolo, did you have something to say?
Soft?
No.
Yeah.
People be saying what?
Yeah. Because we listen to them.
I thought we was the old parents.
Yeah, and they say that we're creating a generation of kids who are soft. Mm-hmm. We're going to touch on this next week, not too far, because not too far. We're gonna leave that where it's at. You guys make sure that you tune in next week at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, okay? I do want to take a second to say thank you to everybody that popped on tonight, everybody who interacted in the comments. We really appreciate you guys. We appreciate you guys sharing us out. It is absolutely free to support. We're not posting any Cash App links. We're not asking you guys for any money. We are asking you guys to share us out. Go to our TikTok. It's in the comments. Our YouTube is in the comments. Make sure that you guys are sharing our videos throughout the week. That's all we need from you guys. Make sure that you guys are following us on all platforms, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. Those are the only 3 platforms that we have right now. And making sure that you guys tune in every 6 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Facebook. We'll be going live from my page until we're able to go live from the Heightened and Enlightened page. Once we start going live over there, we will redirect you guys over there so you know where to find us. Let's see. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all, I'm lightweight a professional at this point.
No, for real.
Okay.
For real.
All right, you guys. Like I said, thank you again so much for tuning in. Remember that healing isn't a destination, it's a journey. Okay, stay grounded, stay growing, and keep rising. Until next time, be well, be whole, be heightened, and be enlightened. We love y'all.
Love y'all.
See y'all next Sunday, Central Standard Time, right here on Facebook.
Same time. Don't miss
Same
it.
time.